Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. In a moment, I'll be joined by Joe Ignace for a discussion on entrepreneurship. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thanks so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers. And while you are doing that, I will share information about your book.
Sweet, thank you. Yeah, my name's Joe Ignace, and I am the owner and founder of the Knowledge Gap Company. And what we do is help businesses optimize and grow their revenue through some analysis and helping them understand how to improve their sales process, operations, lead flow, and all the different parts of business. And I'm an author. I just wrote a book called The Problem with Potential: How to Stop Overthinking and Get Out of Your Own Way, which is now on Amazon. And I grew up in Tennessee, graduated from the University of Tennessee in 2019, and have done over 7,000 hours of door-to-door sales. I've started 2 different startups, one in the fitness industry called Elevate Wellness, and of course the Knowledge Gap Company, which is what I've landed on in the consulting space. And my mission is to inspire people to do what inspires them. I'm a big believer that when we inspire entrepreneurs, we inspire leaders to do big things, that there's this ripple effect of helping others from that. And if they are successful, they're going to add value to the people around them.
Sounds good. Thank you, Joe. Now tell me, what is an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. So an entrepreneur to me is almost synonymous with an engineer in a lot of ways, because as an entrepreneur, you're reverse engineering solutions to problems that you're seeing all the time. So entrepreneurs are problem solvers at their heart, and they're really good at just figuring out what is an issue and figuring out a way to deliver a solution to people in a way that they can understand it quickly, and just essentially, solve problems for businesses, people, anything like that.
But don't they also have to be risk takers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They have to be risk takers. I mean, entrepreneurship is all of the risk. I mean, there is no guarantees, and you have to find a problem that's worth solving, because if it's not worth solving, no one's going to pay you for it.
That is true. Now, how do you go about becoming a successful entrepreneur? And remember, we only have half an hour.
Yeah, I know. We could talk about this forever. This will be another book at some point, I'm sure. If you want to become a successful entrepreneur, you've got to find something. And this is actually when I consult businesses all the time. I always ask in our intake forms, what's your mission, vision, and values? If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you actually really need to start with why the heck you're doing what you're doing, because otherwise, at some point, it's not going to be worth it to you. It's going to be difficult. The mission at the Knowledge Gap is to inspire people to do what inspires them by helping them bridge their knowledge gaps, think big, and believe in themselves so that they can add value to the people around them. And the way that we do that, we just find that entrepreneurs are the people who talk to the most people. There's statistics where if you're in sales or entrepreneurship, you're going to meet, 10 times more people in your lifetime than the average person. And so if our mission is to inspire people, then inspiring the right type of people has actually led to why we do consulting. So if you don't know your mission, there's no point of jumping into entrepreneurship. And I really do believe that the best entrepreneurs are the ones who are trying to make a difference in the world in some way, shape, fashion, or form. And in that mission actually determines everything to do with your business. I'll give an example. My wife and I want to do this is a very saturated market, but still entrepreneurship, owning businesses. We want to have a romantic getaway in the Smokies. That's where we live, in Knoxville, Tennessee, just 40 minutes down the road, the most traveled to place in the United States, Great Smoky Mountains. So we want to have this little glamp site. And the reason we want to have a glamp site, the mission, is simply that we want to support and foster healthy marriages. And so that determines the branding. It determines the sales process. It determines the collaborations. It determines the design, the marketing of the entire facility. So when we're designing it, it needs to be something that's romantic, great, wonderful bed, right? Jacuzzi, lights, whatever. And that mission also tells us that we need to partner with people who have the same mission. So it tells us our watering holes, essentially. Churches, pastors, therapists, anyone else who wants to support and foster healthy marriages, we can go and now talk to all of these people and develop, lead flow by offering a 10% discount and having, hey, we have the same mission. We're on the same team. I'd love to offer our space to any couples that are looking to rebuild their marriage or whatever. And so if you have a strong mission, it tells you all the different parts of the business that need to be developed. So that's where I would start.
Well, if they want to build a strong marriage, the inference is that their marriage is weak. So you better make sure you have insurance on the cabin. Otherwise, if the jacuzzi and bed don't do what you hope they'll do, they might do what I'm inferring that they might do.
Yeah.
You can kiss your cabin goodbye.
You're absolutely right. You need some business insurance. It's probably a nice umbrella policy. Maybe have them sign some contracts leading up to it. So
I should hope so. Now, to be serious, you're talking about the importance of relationships. And I know from personal experience that I was invited to be in a group, and I went, and the people were all very nice, and I got no business at all out of it until I made a presentation. And all of a sudden, they started to take me seriously. Up until then, and the presentation wasn't even on the focus of my work, which is, of course, staffing, career counseling, and professional writing. The focus was on LinkedIn, which is a tool that I use. I view LinkedIn as a tool. And when they saw the presentation, all of a sudden they started taking me seriously. How do you judge? Because the person is going to say everything that you want to hear. Unless they're really stupid, they know exactly what their audience wants to hear, and they're going to tell them that. So how do you know if they're being sincere? In my case, I proved my worth, so to speak, by showing the status that I had gained on LinkedIn.
Yeah. What you're talking about is social proof, right? So the biggest, strongest, best companies, they have large budgets. And so they develop social proof all the time by hiring the most well-paid athletes, for example, if you're talking Nike or Adidas, right? So you have to have social proof and content, interviews like what we're doing right now. This is for me, a public appearance, and get to be blessed to be on this podcast. Thanks for having me yet again. And when you have social proof and you're sharing out your ideas and you're putting things out there, like writing a book at the end of the day is one of the best business cards you'll ever have, because people can read your thoughts and they can determine your expertise simply by listening or engaging with content you created. And that's all people care about. They just want to know that you can deliver on what you're claiming you can deliver, which is one of the reasons why you need to have online, media and content that you're creating all the time, because it's the difference between, oh, that person said something great, but I don't really believe them. The statistics nowadays, I don't remember the exact stat, but I believe it's like 80% of consumers across industries, they prefer to have some sort of video before they make a purchase. And no matter what business you're in, whether you're selling a product, you're selling yourself in personal selling, a service, the difference between you making the sale and not is sometimes just, do I like this person? Do I trust you? If your offer is good, there's a need. And sometimes though, we just don't solve the need with you because I don't trust you. So you need to be doing everything that you possibly can to build trust.
Actually, that's an interesting point, because I had read the same, and I don't remember what it is either, that the statistic that people want to see a video. So I put a video up on my website, and very few people, I think I broke 2 digits. I think 12 people have watched it. But in that same period of time, hundreds have seen my the podcasts that I'm on.
Mhm.
And the podcasts that have nothing to do with my work.
Mhm.
Like yesterday, there was a podcast on relationships. It's got nothing to do with my work.
Yep.
People watch it and they decide, okay, I like this guy or I don't like him. But I get more positive, I've gotten more positive feedback from just being me in an unscripted, as everybody can now tell, format
Mhm.
than the 80-second video that I memorized and put on my on the website.
Mhm.
So now, y go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about the power of authenticity, right? We love nowadays. We all love people who are just themselves, right? We very much appreciate those types of things. We hate ads. I mean, the market hates ads. Advertisements just don't work anymore. You know, you have to. It's really more like a hybrid ad, or you have to add humor, or you have to just be yourself, and it sells you, right? Again, any hiring solutions, right? People need jobs. You know, anybody in their right mind needs a job and would love to find a better paying job. There's a big need. Why should they pick you over anyone else? Because there's a lot of different agencies. It's because they just like you, right? And when you're just being yourself and there's no strings attached, you can supersede, sales resistance. So when I was going door to door, I had a week where I had 59% of people let me in their house. And it's based exactly on what you're talking about, just being super authentic, telling stories about people you've met and having a really good social media profile and posting everything that's happening all the time. People just let you in their house, you know?
If I understood you correctly, going door to door is how you started out and how you built your first business or businesses.
Yeah, yeah. I worked. I was an entrepreneur at that time. It was with a company called Southwestern, and they sold educational books and apps and websites. So I did that for 7 years. Selling and recruiting, and led a sales organization of about 35 salespeople when I was about 24. So that's how I learned, the whole sales, recruiting, leadership side of everything I do now.
Well, you can't go door to door today. That's
Uh,
not really going to happen.
Dude, that's so funny. They still are doing it. Actually, we
Okay.
sold. It's so funny that, and a lot of people think this, by the way. Every parent, I recruited 43 students to sell books door to door, 80 hours a week, straight commission. We don't know where you're going yet, by the way, until 2 weeks, right? Parents were so excited for their kids. Um, and during COVID, we really thought that the business was just going to die. It's been around 168 years or something like that, out of Nashville. And actually, COVID, like my group, we sold $1 million worth of books in like 11 weeks during COVID that first summer.
Door to
And
door.
door to door. Yeah. Well, you just do some market research and you just find ways around it. So we just picked counties, at least in our area. I can't speak for the whole company. This was our strategy. We just picked counties that had a very low percentage of people that contracted COVID at all, more rural areas. And everyone was just at home and excited to talk to people. So, it's everything's perspective and mindset. If you think about it, you look at the world and everyone's saying one thing and it can determine your outcome just by believing them. Or you can say, well, is that really true and real? And you can go out there and experience, go talk to humans. And it worked out great. It was actually our best, or my biggest growth year for the group.
Rural America is so much different from suburban America, which is so much different from urban America. So I'm in the urban part of our country,
Mm-hmm.
and it would not work here.
Oh, of course not. Yeah. Urban, you know, um, every business, right? If we're talking entrepreneurship, it's you have a target ideal audience that you're trying to sell to, right? You have a client, an avatar that you're usually looking for. And urban areas are more dangerous on average, so it's like asking college students to go there. It doesn't really work out. You're also
Yeah.
like, how would you do apartments? But out in the rural areas, there's less regulations. People are at home more often. There's more, in general, stay at home mothers, just based on demographics. And so it's a better place to sell. And some of the products, like those schools out there don't get as much funding. So the educational needs a little bit greater. So, suburbs too, it just depends on the counties and different things, but it worked great. I never worked in an urban area, and to my knowledge, no one works urban areas. They'll work suburbs and they'll work country and rural areas only.
Yeah, there was a time when a salesperson, I should say, would knock on the door of a company
Yep.
in a high rise.
Mm-hmm.
They do their business, and then they would knock on every other door in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd hand out business cards or the brochure or some swag, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen anymore. It just, you can't do it.
I would definitely say it depends on the person and salesperson. And
No, they don't allow it.
even so, I mean, again, things move to emailing now, and obviously it depends on the high rise too. But yeah, I mean, some places definitely would not allow that.
You mentioned something I wanted to touch upon, and I don't want to forget, which is why I
Sure.
wrote it down, which is email.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get inundated every day with emails, and they begin, "Hey, Bruce." And then it goes on, "I saw your website and it is phenomenal." And I immediately click block sender because I don't want to work with people like this. You can't get past me by starting off with HEY.
Yeah.
I always remember that the response when somebody would say, "Hey, Bruce," the retort would be, "Hey is for horses." So it doesn't work. It's got to
Yeah.
be professional. I'm not saying you have to say Dr. Hurwitz or Mr. Hurwitz but Bruce will suffice. It's a professional way today to address someone. But it's always best to have some sort of a relationship already, a warm opening rather than a cold. With all the noise that's out there on social media, how do you break through to get a business off the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. When we work with brand analysis and we're looking at how you're connecting with people, when you figure out who your ideal avatar is, right, and your mission lines up with the same mission that they would have, we find that you could go and quote unquote do a cold call,
Mm-hmm.
but it's warmed up simply by how you brand yourself because it's so clear. Referrals are always king, and if you can get referrals, that's great. But if you're just starting out, if you can share a story and mission and why you're doing something, and the person in front of you is going to agree with you, it's a warm conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a wonderful brand that we help with her YouTube channel and with some business consulting. And her brand on her channel is Mom, You're Not Alone. And she essentially, her whole mission is to help moms build wealth, get their time back, and live a life worth living. And what that does is it helps her partner with similar people and organizations where she can add them on LinkedIn, let's say, to build a warm connection, right? Sometimes just a connection and a really good profile, because when you're looking at adding someone back, it's better than an email because they're going to go read your profile real quick. And if it's exactly what you believe, you're going to say, this is cool. And then if they emailed you, you're going to see their name again. If they called you, you're going to recognize them, especially if you had a nice video of content that you would be interested in. That's really how you break through. So when you're making the content, you're reverse engineering based on some of the problems or the mission that you have to relate to the people that you're essentially trying to work with and add value to. And if your offer is good enough and it's solving a problem, people appreciate things like that. If you're really struggling with, name any problem, editing, and someone, connects with you, same mission, vision, values, have a conversation, add you on LinkedIn, send you a welcome video, right? And then emails you, you might be open-minded, at least having a conversation. So if you want to break through, you've got to know who your ideal audience is. Don't try to market to everybody. And then you just really need to find the right people to engage with your content. And frankly, at the beginning, you don't normally get a ton of views all the time. So sometimes it's that manual, just trying to find those first 1,000 fans, who agrees with what you're doing.
I always get a kick out of it. People will come on this show, as you know. One of the questions I ask is, how are you going to promote the program? And they say, "Oh, I have 75,000 social media followers." One person told me that they had 250,000, and I'm sure they're telling the truth. but nobody watches it because it doesn't mean anything. They're not interested in the topic. So even though they are notified of it, they're not going to spend a half hour watching it. It's like I have articles that I publish every week. I get thousands of views, meaning people will read them. But my entire social media network is 90,000. I don't get 90,000 reads. I did once, but that was totally by accident. I offended women and liberals. I didn't mean to. I didn't know I was doing that. And I didn't understand it at first, how anybody could have been offended. Then I realized I was the victim of a game of telephone. But that's fine. That's okay. It got me onto Fox Business. So
There you go.
Bring it on. It's great.
There is a viral approach to being controversial that does get you eyeballs, but it might hurt your, obviously it doesn't feel great sometimes, and depending on the brand you're going for, may not be what you want long term, of course.
Yeah, I once I realized what was happening, I just laughed it off.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
have to have, if you're going to publish on social media, you have to be prepared to be attacked. And if you don't want to be attacked, don't go public.
I remember I got invited to speak at a gala about a month ago, and I go and I get there and I'm setting up, and she bought a copy of the book for everybody in the audience, and there was a small group that already had some copies and were reading, and I remember getting in there, setting up, and two people from the table come up and they say, "We need to talk to you right after this gala." And sure enough, once I got done with my speech, they were like, "We need to talk to you," and it proceeded to talk to me pretty heatedly for about 10 or 15 minutes about the first chapter of my book. What they thought about it, because there's a portion in there where I talk about how when you're young and someone says you have potential, it's a huge compliment, and when you get a little bit more experienced, right? That if someone says you're 45 years old, hey, you have a lot of potential, I would take that as an insult, because you're probably capable, and your potential needs to be realized at some point. You need to have results. And
I
talked about
probably worded a little bit differently. You have a wealth of experience, and there's so much more that you have to offer. But I can see how saying to somebody who's 45 that they have potential, the inference is they haven't achieved much.
Nailed it. And that's exactly what I'm saying. And they took that personally, and it's like, well, I guess if someone's telling you man, you have so much potential. Well, if you're brand new at something, that's very encouraging, right? They're encouraging you. But if someone said it and you've been doing something for a while, right? Then it's like, I've had potential for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's
the old joke. The doctor says that, or a lawyer says, I've been practicing law, medicine, whatever, for 20 years. And somebody says, well, when are you going to start doing it? When are you going to stop practicing? You practice golf. You don't practice law. It may sound like the same word. It's not.
100%. And it's so funny though, because sometimes you got to prickle you got to get a little angry, right? To actually get change out of somebody. And, but she kept reading the book. And so she was halfway through the book at that conversation. She was clarifying that chapter 1. And then she proceeded to tell me for 20 minutes about how impactful the ideas were for her. And, although awkward at first, it's like, that's the whole point. Like some of my book is designed to somewhat piss you off at the beginning to help you realize that like, there's more to life than what you're allowing yourself to do. And I make the argument that, listen, if you're not pursuing helping others, you're at some point plateauing, because you're just going to say, my comfort's more important than this hard, uncomfortable pain I have to go through to grow to be the best version of myself. And when other people helping others, changing lives are on the other side of that, you'll go through the pain every time.
Well, that's something that I wanted to ask you about. And it's from your book. It's not the subtitle, but on the slide I have, learn how the name of the book again is The Problem with Potential. And then learn how the pursuit of helping others solves all problems. That's a
Yeah.
pretty bold statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I had gone, I remember my rookie year, 18 years old, selling books door to door. And you get out there and, you're basically doing this to challenge yourself. It's described as the boot camp of sales. And there's just a point everybody gets at that where you're just like, I don't need this crap moment. I don't have to do this. Why am I here? Because you've just been rejected all day. You're sunburnt. It's 90 degrees out in Oklahoma, which is where I was selling. And you've just gotten like 30 no's in a row and it sucks. And then they're talking bad about you on Facebook. And you're just like, why the heck am I doing this? And the only thing that got me through that first summer that got me excited to come back was the idea that, well, if I knocked on 10,000 doors this summer, talked to 5,000 people, and no one bought but one kid's family, but that kid went to college because they got a scholarship from one of our products, just because I knocked on their door, and they wouldn't have gone to college without me knocking on the door. Would that be worth it? Forget the money. And for me, it was, yeah, that's absolutely more worth it than working Dairy Queen or all the little tiny small time jobs I could have been doing at home. The comfort of playing video games on the couch in the AC, all of it was worth it, because if that kid went to college, you know what, it was worth it. And I met plenty of families like that who we sold some ACT stuff at the time. It's like they had no idea, and I was the kid who I almost had a full ride to college, just missed by a couple points on the ACT because I didn't prioritize it. I didn't know I needed that score better, and that pushed me through. It made me want to be a better person. When I was recruiting, it was never about selling books and how much money you could make. It really was always, if you can do this, you can do anything. And if you're going to come work with me, I'm going to teach you to be a man or woman of your word. Because if you'll do that, if you learn to do what you say you're going to do, not only will you sell a lot and make plenty of money and graduate college debt free, but most importantly, you'll have a good life, because you'll do things that most people don't, especially when no one's looking. And that's how I recruited. And that's what we pushed for, and then we started to get to the pursuit of helping others, right? The whole point of growing yourself is that you can help more people,
Joe, we're actually almost out of time. This has gone quickly, which is a compliment to you. So what I'm going to do is make us magically appear and share your contact information. And I want to thank you profusely. This has been informative and, at least as far as I'm concerned, very enjoyable. I will have one final question for you.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that I did not ask which you wish I had asked? And if I had asked, what would you have said?
Boy, that is a great question. Let me think about that for 2 seconds. I had no expectations of what questions you might ask. I didn't even think about what questions you want to ask. I just wanted to be here and be authentic. But since we're on the topic of entrepreneurship, a question you could ask is why be an entrepreneur? Why should anyone go and be an entrepreneur? And I would simply say this: when you're an entrepreneur, you are set free from the pressures of corporations, of other jobs, and you're allowed to be creative. And I think the beauty in being an entrepreneur is that you can choose any problem in the world that you might want to solve, based on your strengths that you have a passion about, and you can actually go change the world one person at a time. So if you're somebody who is an entrepreneur, wants to be an entrepreneur, is trying to figure it out, is working, has a multi-million-dollar business, there is impact that happens from you existing. And I just hope that this podcast would inspire you to continue doing what you're doing, because you can bring creativity and your values in a way that a lot of other businesses can't, simply because of all the pressures, political pressures, monetary, fiduciary, responsibilities. And it's just go after it, make it happen. And I hope that you can just absolutely live the life you want to live and impact the people that you want to impact.
Joe, on that note, I thank you for profusely on my behalf and on behalf of our viewers for coming on.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.